Hello, welcome to another episode of the Successful Solopreneurs Podcast. And today, I am so pleased to introduce you to Tina Varughese. Hey, Tina was a former immigration manager. And that was years ago before she became a professional speaker, because now for over a decade, you have been speaking about the things you experience as an immigration manager: diversity, inclusion, unconscious bias. Now, we'll touch on Tina's subject, but really, I want to share with all of the listeners there, you solopreneurs, this lady's business has taken off. Yes, she's pretty funny to listen to, so that makes it easy. But we're going to get into just leveraging and being positioned to have a great business. Oh gosh, Tina, I could talk about you forever, but what should people know about you before we have our conversation to help them get the most out of today?
Welcome to the podcast. I hope you enjoy the honest advice and personal stories. I'm Sue Stiles, the CEO of the Successful Solopreneurs School of Business, and I'm here to share hope and possibility so that you can reach the unwavering results you desire. Find the best business resources, advice, and offers at SueStiles.com. And now on with the show.
Well, humble brag, I was named one of Canada's top 10 notable speakers by Ignite magazine, which is Canada's premier magazine for event and meeting planners. I was very recently featured, my training was featured on TSN. I have struggled to get to the gym, but hey, I made it on TSN and Toronto Star, Calgary Herald, and Alberta Venture Magazine, and all of most of that actually came in the last 6 months during a pandemic, and with Black Lives Matters, when Black Lives Matters really came to the forefront. I was called in with Hockey Canada and did a lot of pivotal and imperative work with Hockey Canada on diversity and inclusion and equity initiatives. So trained their entire staff and all of the elite athletes, and it was an amazing experience. And my claim to fame is I was named one of Dove's real models, you know, those models for real beauty back in the day, chosen for diversity in beauty. So definitely a couple of notables. I live in Calgary. I'm here with my husband, 2 kids. I was going to say 5 fish. I think it's down to 4 after the pandemic. And, we've been good friends for years, Sue. So just thrilled to be here today.
Well, thank you, Dove Beauty Model. Dove is actually my favorite soap if they're looking to sponsor podcasts. So in our few minutes today, I really want to get to the nitty-gritty of all the wealth of information you have. When we sit down and chat, all I can think of is, oh my gosh, this is just a wealth of information inside your head. So maybe we could just start, tell me right now, your business is booming and everyone wants your message. What is that message?
You know, my favorite quote on diversity and inclusion is diversity is who's on the team, inclusion is who gets to play. And I think that is the basis of the message that I really try to spread, that you can have diversity initiatives within your organizations, firms, associations, but if it's not coupled with inclusion, you really aren't able to move the dial. So I think with that, I really, really promote building bridges rather than building walls in our very, not just racially complex world, but just in our complex world. I think that, as we stand together apart, we really need to focus on that piece of connection, belonging, unity, empathy, compassion, all of those, traits that true leaders should have anyways. So I really think, and entrepreneurs for the most part. So definitely I'd say that was the key messaging of what I try to promote. And I think people, probably hire me because I'm flawsome. I'm flawed, yet awesome, like many of us. And I think they see that I'm a real person and very authentic. And I am fine with making mistakes and really trying to, do the right thing. And I think that's what we all are trying to do. So that's in essence what I try to promote, Sue.
It's so great to just hear it and to have it top of mind instead of letting it just sink to the bottom and then, working amongst whatever we work amongst. And we're just, like lambs following whatever. Let's think for ourselves. And Tina's here to tell us some from the inside. Now, Before COVID and the pandemic happened last year, you're going along. I know you had a very successful business. You're very experienced. Obviously, you speak so well. But would you say that your business was prepared for the chaos, and crisis that was to come? How prepared were you? Were you thinking, if I can just get a big break? Where were things at in your own business?
Right. I don't think you could prepare for COVID. I don't think anybody prepared for this. But I do think there is a big difference between a stagnant and a growth mindset. And I've always had a growth mindset. And so, for me, no just means next opportunity. I didn't wait to pivot and adapt in this crazy environment. Of course, I miss live audiences. I miss laughter. I miss the energy of an audience. But I had my green screen ordered by March 28th, and the pandemic officially, I think, was March 9th. So I had never presented virtually before. And my whole philosophy going in was, okay, I'm just going to give it a try.
Yeah.
I'd rather just give it a try and fail and then just sit stagnant and not do anything at all. And so and to be honest, Sue, I saw my entire business be wiped out. I literally, I know a lot of people, a lot of businesses were in the boat, but we're as a speaker, we're not coming back till the end, really, quite frankly. A speaker of very large events, I literally saw my entire business for 2020 just be wiped out clean. So I think my pity party, lasted, I don't even know if it was really a half a day. I had the pity party for sure. And then I kind of went, okay, now what? And, with the now what, I didn't do it alone. Like, I definitely had to call on a lot of the colleagues of mine that I knew were much more technically savvy than I am. Indian IT, I'm not, but I do know how to ask for help. And so I talked to my colleagues and, made sure that I understood what I needed to be able to present virtually and to present virtually well. But with that being said, like any business, I think you really have to be poised and positioned continually. I do a lot of strategic business planning for companies. And when we do strategic business planning, if it's a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan, you have to build contingency into your plan. So you might have your vision and you might have your goals and you might have your objectives, but you have to have contingency continually built into it. Best case scenario, worst case scenario. So you need to know how to pivot and should be planning for that accordingly anyways. So, that would be what I preach to companies anyways. So I think that helped. Definitely, I think what helped though for poise and positioning to be able to do well in this virtual space and in the pandemic world is I've always focused on relationship building. Many of my clients have become friends, and I say that very honestly. And sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, we met in a business capacity first. Like, I kind of forget that that's how we met. I am a big believer of using social media, not as just a way of look at me, look at me, look at me, jazz hands, but rather using it as a conversational tool and having your fans and followers truly become your sales force. And so, they become your advocates. If you're constantly putting out that same messaging, you start to build a fan base that now that in turn will become your sales force. And so I think I was very much positioned prior so that when opportunity came, I was able to embrace those opportunities. But like I said, I didn't do it alone. You can't do anything alone.
I'm hearing what you're saying, how you were positioned. Well, if you're speaking about strategy to companies and, and team and culture and looking forward casting, then I guess that's top of mind for you. But I've got to admit, many solopreneurs that I do business coaching with or talk to or have talked to over COVID, they are not treating maybe their business so formally. You're talking about a contingency plan. I'm sure many solo entrepreneurs hadn't even, a lot of them don't even write a business plan.
I'm well aware. And, for years I didn't either. And it wasn't until I started assisting, and I don't do a ton of this work, but I do really, I have a few companies that I've been working with for years on their strategic business planning and with their leadership teams. And definitely, and I don't even recommend doing 5-year plans and 10-year plans, because we know business is going to change. So I always focus on a 1-year, 3-year, but, even as a solopreneur, you should really be having in the beginning, whenever your year end is, for me, I look at January as my start, and putting together that 1-pager of, what your, keep it to 3 goals. What are your true goals? And then reverse engineer it. What do you need to get to get those goals done for your year? And then it's always top of mind. And then I look at that at my to-do list too. My to-do list, then I break down long-term, medium-term, short-term. So, I know what I need to do to reverse engineer to get to my goals by the end of the year. So I have to agree with you. A lot of solopreneurs, they're really good at what they do, but they don't necessarily treat their business like a business. And that's that whole, being in it versus, working around it, whatever it is. You really have to treat your business like a business.
Yeah. And I have seen your business evidence. Your website is fantastic. You've filmed, you've got yourself being filmed speaking. You have these 1-pages. You have done the work, which takes a long time. You did the work and you had it all in place when, when your subject matter took off. But let's talk about that work a little bit. If there's people listening right now and wanting to be prepared for whatever opportunities come their way, let's start right with the clients. How you had said, obviously you're a very friendly person, you keep in touch, but there's some strategy around that everybody can implement. What have been some of the best ways, what have been some of the best ways you have connected with people and gotten business?
Well, I think that I have no issues being very honest and open and flawed. Quite frankly, I think people relate to that. When you're relatable, I think people feel more comfortable with you. And it's, with relationship building, yes, you want to build authentic trust, but there's a difference with trust. You have different types of trust. And, one type of trust is when you're building it with your credibility, with your expertise, with, in my case, my speaking capacity. But the other piece is what we call effective trust, and that's the relationship building. How much time are you taking to nurture those relationships? Do your clients only hear from you when you're trying to sell them something? Like with COVID coping, did you take the time, and can still take the time to pick up the phone or send a quick text or a quick video, and just, private message on Facebook, whatever it is. And, ask the question, not how are you? Because in North America, that's, a very, we're considered to be the most superficial country in the world, because we ask, how are you? And we don't care what the answer is. But during COVID, add one word to it, and that would be, how are you coping? And, when people are truly asked, and it doesn't matter what position they're in, if they're CEO, CFO, manager, whoever, people care that you care. And so, I kind of look at it as, I'm not just going to call you or connect with you during the really great times or when I'm looking for work. I'm going to call you when it's the tough times as well. And that partially comes from my cultural diversity training, because we're known as an individualistic culture in Canada. We're very much about our own goals, our own achievements, our own jobs, our own homes. Collectivist cultures are more into family, community, really caring about the holistic approach and caring about those relationships in a holistic way. And so I'm a big believer of the best of both worlds. And so I really try to make those relationships not just individualistic in nature, but of taking a much more holistic approach to those relationships, so that it becomes a sustainable business. And so my business, my professional and personal life, quite frankly, has morphed. And that to me is how you get a sustainable business.
Oh, that is so interesting. I'm so engaged. I can't even remember the question I'm going to ask you next, Tina.
I don't even remember the question I was supposed to answer. I hope I answered it. I think I did.
Such a good reminder. I can't tell you, probably this morning I got a message on social media, a DM. Hi, I see your profile. I'm looking to increase my connections. You look like somebody interesting. Let's connect. But the message that I hear between the lines is, you look like someone who wants to buy my services or that I can sell to. And before I even know you, I'm going to reach out with a sales pitch.
I know. Like, it's death by social media when you do that. In fact, when I get a lot of it, if I get someone that connects with me on LinkedIn and pulls that, I not just delete, I block.
Yeah.
You know, to me, you're not even, there's no authenticity there. I have no issues if you want to connect with me and build that relationship over time. I've had many people do that, and they build it by offering, you know, keep in mind your social media platform. It's not just, like I said, it's not jazz hands. It's not just about me. You have to give a lot of advice, consult, continuous information before anybody is going to believe in your credibility. And so I use my platform that way. And I have many fans and followers that, quite frankly, probably will never, you know, necessarily hire me for a conference or speaking or organization. They may not be in the position to, but they are influencers. Everybody out there is an influencer in some capacity and can become an advocate of your work. And so I just make sure that I'm continually putting out those messages. That's not just in my clients' best interests and my fans and followers, that's in mine. That's how we learn. You know, if I'm continually being relevant on any type of platform, I have to learn the information to be able to do it with any credibility. So, you know, because sometimes people look at social media as such a chore and they, you know, outsource it. And I'm just like, well, it doesn't have to be a chore if you're using it as, you know, your own MBA and your expertise. So make sure that you're continually learning. It's a Kaizen approach to life. Kaizen is a Japanese word meaning continuous improvement. You know, so if you kind of take that Kaizen approach to life, then you're continually improving upon what you know or what you're trying to do or who you are.
Yeah. So you have one platform and there's an example of how people do it so poorly that doesn't yield results, and an authentic, organic example of how you can use it to make wonderful results. I know that you have tried a lot of things over your career. You know, when you're just starting out and you're trying to build your business and build your image, you know, and get the jobs. Can you share anything about some of the worst things that you've tried that just haven't worked to get business?
One of my worst mistakes I made was hiring a PR firm too early out of the gate. I had only been in business, I don't even know, maybe 4 years at the time, which sounds like a long time, but it really wasn't. Because I hadn't built enough credibility in my field to be able to promote it, yet alone hire a firm. Now, recognize when you hire a great firm and they have a database of amazing clients and you're like a peon, you know, Sue, you can't even fart without them invoicing you for that. I mean, seriously, like that is just not the way you want to go. Like as a solopreneur, I highly recommend, you know, growing your business organically. I'm a big believer of, you know, putting funds back into your business, into your marketing, but at an organic growth rate. You know, I see so many businesses do everything, build these amazing websites and buy the stationery and get office, you know, bricks, mortar, whatever. Build it organically, slowly, and invest as you can. You know, you don't, and honestly, like, and you're very kind to say that my website is a good, you know, marketing tool for me. And definitely I feel a lot of the stuff, I have a graphic designer, etc. But it didn't start off like that. And I have to say, you know, I look back and I'm like, how the heck did I even get business when I look back at some of the marketing pieces? But in turn, you know, you need to strive for progress, not perfection. And as long as you're continually striving for progress, not perfection, and you don't get stuck in the analysis paralysis phase, because I find so many entrepreneurs get so stuck on the analysis paralysis that they start to do that internal self-talk and question every decision they're making. You can zig, you can zag, you can go forward, you can go backward. It doesn't matter, but you need to move.
Yeah.
And so I just find so many solo entrepreneurs just get stuck and they get in their own way rather than just move, just start.
Yeah, sure. It's hard for solopreneurs because you're it. And then you feel like I'm it. And so then you rely on yourself for everything. Well, if you're not a professional marketer, you know, a lot of people say, you know, we're all the best kept secret. If people only knew about us. And so like you hire a PR firm. One of the past episodes with Rachel, the owner of Make Lemonade, she did the same thing, opened up her business, a work-share space, and right away had all this PR. And to be honest, they weren't even ready for it. And
Right.
so you learn through those mistakes. But if there's one thing I want people to take away from this podcast, hear the mistakes and experiences of the experts who are sharing and learn from them so you don't have to make those same mistakes yourself. Learn from somebody else's. So I just want to touch on, you have this career. Oh, you're an immigration manager. That's probably pretty good career. You can work your way up, high level capacity or making a difference. Sounds great. You pivot and decide you want to speak about it. And I know there's a lot of people stuck in jobs that they don't enjoy those jobs. Was that the situation for you? Or, how can people get in touch with what they really want to do? And should they pivot? Should they make a leap? Can you talk to that experience a little bit and maybe what happened for you?
Well, I had a fantastic career, actually. I worked both with municipal and provincial government. And I had, I was young and I was married. I didn't have kids yet. And I was probably the youngest in my department. And I was doing a lot of international work. So I was able to travel to Europe, to Asia, and see these places at a time in my life that, I didn't have the kids that, made me kind of yearn for them. I have to tell you, once I did my last trip to Europe on an immigration mission, my oldest was at that time 18 months old, and I could not even look at her picture. Like, it was just too hard for me. And so that was sort of the last international trip I took when they were young. And so I would have to say, though, at the end, I had a great career. And then that last year, I had changed departments, and people don't leave jobs, Sue, people leave people. And so for me, it was one of these situations. And quite frankly, every boss, I use quote podcasts, but I use quotes, every boss I've ever had that has been, less than stellar, well, quite frankly, they've made every one of my keynotes in some way. As the what not to do, because I tend to be the conduit for people that I could say what others cannot, and I just do it from a stage. And so I think people really love that, because I give them insights as to what leaders should do, how ecological safety is in the workplace. And so, I have paid homage to every wonderful boss I've ever had in my life, because they've made it somehow, some way on stage with me, the ghosts of bosses past. So, so I've definitely, used them. But I have to say, it's so funny, I wish they do have an entrepreneurship program now through most College of Commerce programs. I have my BCom, I have my BA in poli-sci, and then did my business degree, but they did not have entrepreneurship. As I majored in marketing, but had I had that opportunity, I am and I think many of us are born entrepreneurs. And I think it starts when you're very, very young. I had, a little car wash business. I had the lemonade stand. I think that bug hits you very, very early in life. And I really think that we're often whispered really what our true calling is in terms of purpose. And it doesn't necessarily mean occupation. It means what gives you purpose and joy. So, I know that there are some people that are stuck in jobs that they can't stand, and you may not be in a position where you can leave that job, but you do have to ask yourself, am I the type of person that I would want to work with today? And if that answer isn't an immediate yes, then, and if it's a no, well, that should be a big sign for you. But if it's a yes, you should now ask yourself, why am I someone that someone would want to work with today? Then dissect it again and go, is that why being fulfilled in the current job I have? Now, if it's not, it doesn't mean leave it, but you have to ask yourself, well, how do I get my why then? And that can be in volunteer work, it can be in board work, it can be through art, it can be through, helping your community, but figure out what that joy is. I truly believe, like, I had many, many whispers from when I was a kid leading me in this direction of not just being a speaker, but also speaking on diversity and inclusion. And that happened from a very young age. It's just that I wasn't listening for a very long time until finally it became a shout. And then I had to start listening, quite frankly.
Tell me that story. I believe you had someone who heard you at a conference and went to school with you.
Yeah, so I didn't even remember this, to be honest. I have Facebook friends with a lot of kids I went to elementary school with and high school. And I think I had put on Facebook something about, maybe an accolade as a professional speaker. And this dear sweet friend that I had when I was 12 years old said, "But Tina, you've been speaking on diversity and inclusion since you were 12, since you ran for student council in grade 8. And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I'm just like, "What are you talking about?" I mean, obviously I'm quite a bit older than 12. Brown don't frown, but I am way older than 12. And she just said, "You talked about how dances should be fun for everybody, not just the popular people." And I'm like, "Oh my God, yeah, that is actually what I spoke about, was the inclusivity of school dances, those horrible, awkward shuffle, dances of whatever it was, the 1970s, 1980s. I'm now aging myself. But yeah, and she remembered my speech word for word. And I realized, I'm like, okay, not only have I been speaking all my life, and that's what gave me that tingle, that buzz, but I have been speaking towards diversity and inclusion. I had other little things too. I had this beautiful friend, again, private message me on Facebook. Now, I grew up in the 80s. And when I say 80s, I don't mean the 1980s. I mean the 80s, AIDS. It was a tough time, particularly for individuals who were gay. And I had a great friend who private messaged me, and he didn't really have a lot of friends on Facebook from high school. And he just said, "You were one of the very few people that were kind to me in high school." He was very blatantly gay, and I didn't realize he was not just bullied, but he was death threats came against him in those days. And so that blew me away too. So I had all of these little, signs that this was sort of the path I was supposed to take anyway. I just wasn't listening till now.
Wow. If we all can just take a minute and think back, even ask those schoolmates, what did you think I'd do when I grew up? I mean, those are some great insights. And I totally agree that if you're not entrepreneurial, you can still find a way to fulfill your passion wherever you are in all kinds of different capacities. But if you are a solopreneur and you're wanting to run a business, then you've got to be in touch with that passion and let it come out. Sometimes it's hard to see the forest for the trees, but maybe listening to some of your advice here today, Tina, has helped spark somebody's idea or remembrance.
I hope so.
So tell us, guys, if you want to get in touch with Tina or see her online, where can people find you?
Easiest way is to visit my website, which is tworksforyou.ca. That's all spelled out, TWORKSFORYOU.ca. And either connect with me. I'm on every social media platform. So if that be Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, you will find me. I'm there. So definitely any of those ways, I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you so much for being my guest today. And if any of the listeners out there ever attend conferences or host them, you've got to put Tina's name on your list. She is hilarious. And we didn't have time today, but when you mock your mother, I mean, that is worth the price of the ticket right there.
Yeah, she's asking for royalties now, Sue. So I'm not sure if we want to mock her a lot.
The family business.
Family business.
Well, thank you so much for listening today. Hope you heard something in Tina's hindsight, and I look forward to sharing with you again on our next episode. Have a good day.